Okay, hello guys. I'm back here and I have brought a very special guest. His name is Kevin. He has recently won a regional with Memento. Let me check how many players there was. There was there was uh, there was 191 duelists in this regional and Kevin beat all of them to win. And he won with Memento. Kevin, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, yeah. Well, I'm Kevin. Uh, and like Sabit said, just won the remote dual regional playing Memento, my favorite deck.
So, so I want to just go over your list. I found, and I wanted to ask you some questions. Uh, so when I look here, that you're playing three Dark Blade. Now, I feel like this was not as standard. I'm not that familiar with the Memento deck, but why were you playing three Dark Blade? Any reason why?
Yeah, I think you're right that it's generally not standard. I think people prefer to play three Witch. The main reason I hear, at least for being against three Dark Blade, is that Dark Blade, since it's a starter, but the effect it brings out a monster from the extra deck, so it gives your opponent one more draw under Fua. But I prefer to play at max out on all the names since I think a lot of people, at least right now in this little format, were cutting. Well, for sure, everyone stopped playing Valor, and then some people were even going as far as to not play Imperm anymore. So you didn't have a strong chance of getting hit with a low impact hand trap, and so you wanted to maximize on names. That way, you always get to play. Uh,
So,
and I prefer Darkblade over Witch because assuming it gets to resolve, it's stronger than Witch because if they don't have Ash or Imperm, but if they have a Bestial, the line for Witch will lose to a Bestial while Darkblade plays around the Bestial.
So you explained your reasoning for Darkblade. I just want to add one thing. I kind of agree. I feel like going into a Ryziel board, hitting like using this as your first action and then hitting the Ryziel cross, it really like stops the interruption of the Ryziel cross negate, which can later hurt you later down the combo.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. That's another big one is I think maybe I prefer more an aggressive approach going into a board, but I generally always love seeing Darkblade and like either like you said, popping cross or say they have like a set. So like for example, even Malice just forcing out GWC right away, or even just like random back row like Solemns. Uh, I like that utility that it provides.
So another thing I've noticed, like I know Memento is very infamous for their quick plays, but you only play three Goblin Biker Grand Breakout. Why is that? You only play two, sorry. You
Uh,
only play two, sorry.
yeah. I think yeah, people generally like three. I used to play three. I think I switched after I can't recall his name, but this guy he did really well in the Italian Opens and like some Italian regionals in Italy. He mentions how he his instead of a third breakout, he preferred one for one. And that's because sometimes like usually if you start with Witch, you'll search Tatsu, but you might already have Tatsu in hand, and so you just search a random name. And so that way it can provide more utility that way. And also, I just personally didn't like seeing double breakout. And that's because if you see double bone party or double fusion, it's not the worst because you'll just use one in your turn. And in a line in the combo where you'd obtain another one to set for your opponent's turn, you could instead just grab a monster instead of the spell. And so you could just use the second one on your opponent's turn. But breakout doesn't do anything on your opponent's turn other than tag out for a goblin. And so that's why I opted to play two. I was playing one for one, like I said, a third one, but at last minute I changed it to Horn Dragon.
And did you
And
did you regret your decision, or were you happy with your decision?
I was extremely happy with the decision. I admit that wasn't on my own. I talked to Sven Ribman, this German player. I think he got like top 32 at the German nationals, and he said one for one wasn't coming up for him as much, and I felt the same way. Like on theory, it's nice, especially because you play so many chummies. So like going first, you could just pitch one of them since it's going to be a dead card. But Horned Dragon just provides a lot of utility because assuming game one, you get say double Charmy, which happened to me in the event. The two times I won die roll, I got hit double Charmy, and so I was extremely happy to have that in my main deck, because I was able to set up enough interruptions to live and kill them on my turn. And it's just another name. All the one card lines, one card combos are very strong, but they're much stronger if it's like a, I guess, a 1.5 card combo where you have another name. And so this increased the name count by one more. And so it just all kind of compounds. But I was happy with that choice.
Another thing I want to add is that so you opted to choose Horn Dragon
Uh-huh.
over a starter essentially, and I also see an engraver with no targets. So you've added more bricks, but you still managed to perform. That speaks a lot about the deck. Do you think the deck is like? Do you think it's as consistent even with all these breaks, or did you just drew really really well?
I think it's pretty consistent with all the bricks because I think I for sure think like at the very least like to win to go undefeated I there was an element of luck, but at least like maybe going say X2, I think it was the deck choice building. It really performed well because it's like for example like adding the third blade, which some people don't play because they're afraid of multiple normal summons, but like I rather see four normal summons than none. And so, and I think Memento functions a bit differently than other decks, like say like Mitsu Raizo, where they add bricks. Because for example, like say Kusanagi, like that will truly do nothing. It will add no value to your hand whatsoever. Versus in Memento, since it's like a fusion-based deck, having another name in hand does add functionality. You want to see multiple names. You want to see fusion live right away. That way you can either start your combo with that or go into a board with Memento Fusion live. And so the bricks aren't, I would say, as bad compared to other decks. And so,
Except for
I mean,
Garrick.
and there was,
Except for
yeah, except we got it, yeah, yeah. But
You
even
know,
then, actually, sometimes it's nice because you can, if you sleepy fusion summon, like say King, and they're holding Ash for King, you can chain block King or Twin because you do chain link one Twin, chain link one King, either one, and then do chain link two Gaddock. Uh, and that happened actually one time. The second I did that, my opponent scooped up and he said I was just saving Ash for King, but I chain blocked it. That was his only interruption.
mm, and
Uh,
that's
but
because you
otherwise,
drew the
yeah,
brick. That's because you drew the brick.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
But you're right. Other than that, Gaddock is a true brick, and a right engraver in this build is an actual brick. I drew that I think maybe three or four times in my hand. Um, I
How
think
annoyed?
though the
How annoyed
huh,
were
what's
you?
that?
How annoyed were you at the engraver?
Uh, I think like I guess in the moment not annoyed because I was some you I feel like you gotta have a clear mind when playing these things, but and just accept it as is. I think it was fine though because the deck just feels so powerful. It's like it, I don't know. It just the deck feels like it just feels so clean that it didn't matter that I had the engraver in hand. I don't think it ever cost me the game.
Hmm. That's good. That's nice to hear. That's nice to hear.
Yeah.
Uh, and I also noticed. I know a lot of people tend to play three of the non-engine. You're playing two droplet. Did you ever miss a third one, or did you ever feel like you played one in the side or anything with the two droplets?
Uh, I think when I was building this, uh, the third droplet was called by the grave. I wanted to fit, I think the third ash in the side, and so I needed to, and I wanted to keep playing called by the grave, so I need to find somewhere to cut in the main, and I replaced the third droplet with it. I don't think I ever missed it. I think the times when I saw called by the grave, like say going game one, where it would have been like an ash blossom or something, yeah, I was fine with it being called by the grave, and that's also because I don't know. Maybe if people, I think on paper it sounds ridiculous to say is that I felt like I was just drawing almost too much non-engine sometimes. I think
Hmm.
people forget how strong the Memento engine on its own really is. And so you really, obviously, ideally want to see two non-engines, say like Pearlia or Charmy and Droll or Droplet and Droll, something like that. But sometimes I was seeing like say three non-engine and it just it was almost like it was too much of that, and I didn't have enough mental engine to play at all going into a board. So I don't think I missed it or drop it whatsoever. I honestly only saw drop it I think one time, and even then it didn't even matter. It just negated something for fun, but I think at that game I won anyways without droplet.
Ever since the YCS win in Houston, people have been respecting Memento more and more. but
Uh-huh.
people still don't tend to learn the combos or the choke points. How many times have people imperned Anguich or Dark Player and you've had the punish in hand? How many times have you punished people for incorrectly using their hand traps?
At the event, ooh, I think maybe I think two opponents. One of the it was in early in the round, early in the event, so everyone was still playing. No one had dropped, and this guy he admitted he doesn't know anything that Memento does, which was very surprising. Because I mean he was playing a very competitive deck, and it was like a maxed out deck too. So I was surprised to hear that, and he was just throwing his hand traps on the normal summons. And the second guy. I think he just admitted that even though he's played the deck against it, he just hasn't, like you said, put the effort to respect it and to learn what it does. And so I think, yeah, two opponents were punished by that.
Hmm. So,
Yeah.
so this is a very, I would say, a very heavy combo deck with a high ceiling and a high reward.
Uh-huh.
How, would you agree?
Yeah, I agree. I 100% agree.
And are you naturally drawn to these kind of decks? Do you prefer these kind of decks from the past, or was this just like the one-off deck where you liked like how Anguish looks and you Akiran looked and you're like, okay, this deck is really nice and you want to play it, or why this deck?
I think it was honestly all those factors. I started playing a bit after Agov format, and I mean, I had played when I was like a kid, but like as a kid you don't have any money or you're not even that smart enough to play competitively. And so I got back in like or I guess the first time seriously into the game and I picked up I think Snake Eye at the time and I liked the way they played. Cause I think I tried Rescue Ace. I felt like it was too linear. It was just so fast to turn, set four pass. And then I saw Memento and kind of like said I saw the archetype, the art, and it looked nice. And I started playing it, and it just felt rewarding. Like when because it is intricate. It's a very complex deck, but I I liked it because it felt like whenever I lost, it was very much in my control. Like, or when I win, it was because I was in my control. It didn't feel like, oh, I just didn't draw enough hand traps. Oh, I got sacked or something like that. I mean, unless I got shifted. But it this feels like a deck, like I said, it's very rewarding if you know how to play it, and each game really is in your control. I feel like there's always a chance for you to win. You just have to see the line. And it just drew me, and I started playing it like locked in with this deck since July, since Infinite Forbidden, when Sleepy and Creation King were released. And I got punished a lot. Like I didn't do well at the very start because, like you said, it's a very complicated deck. It's very easy to fumble, especially at a long form event where you have like 8 rounds plus. Because it can get tiring. But it's just I don't know. There's nothing as rewarding as it, in my opinion.
So and what were your matchups? Would you say the matchups were something you were prepared for, or would you say the matchups were really different? Did you had to work for them, or were the matchups like I know this deck is really good into Ryziel variants and Mitsu variants, but they're not necessarily good into Malice where they have like 3DD crows, they can banish names. What were your matchups? Were they good matchups for the deck or bad?
I think they were fairly good. I kind of piggybacking off like the droplet comment. I like I said, I spoke to Sven, and this is similar to his build he played because he played like a hybrid version where he has the one engraver, but he chose to play Super Poly. But I think he himself said he didn't like it in the event, and I just didn't like it because going into the Mitsuraizo board, Super Poly doesn't do anything. And I was afraid of seeing that a lot of Mitsuraizo, and that's exactly what happened. And that's why I chose to play Droplet. I played 5 Mitsurugi, Raizo, Fiendsmith type decks, um, a Centurion, one Malice, and one Mirror. And like you said, Malice is a very tough matchup, but that's why this time, because before I wasn't playing six like extra deck hate cards for Malice, I was only playing Lancia. I chose to also fit Meows into it to help my chances against that deck, since it is the worst matchup. Uh,
Hmm.
and yeah, I mean the Centurion caught me by surprise, because I think it was also late in the event. It was when I was already like 4-0, and so that means they were also undefeated, and it was in that case, Gordian Slicer actually saved me in that matchup because I was able to bounce the field spell. from preventing them from synchro summoning. And yeah,
Now,
I think it went as I expected.
now that you mentioned Guardian Slicer, which is in your side deck, I want to move on to your side deck. Obviously, you mentioned the 6 Malice here, and then I presume Ashes for the Charmies when you're going first.
Yes, correct.
And now the Spice. Guardian
Yeah.
Slicer and Heatwave. Let's go to Guardian Slicer. Obviously, you mentioned the Centurion. It caught you by surprise, but this card saved you. I presume you target the field spell and whatever cards they've got. So how was this card for you, and where did this thought process came up? Like, I'm gonna play a board breaker in a specific hand trap format. How was this for you?
I thought it was insane. If I thought it was insane going into it, and then it ended up performing exactly as like I was hoping. It was an insane card. I think every time I saw it, I won the game, except one time. It was against Malice, and it's unfortunate that game because that game I also saw Lancia, I saw Meow and Gordian Slicer, and I still lost. But it works amazing. I think Sven said that it was like Super Poly and Droplet kind of mixed into one card. Uh, and I think a lot of people underestimated the card because there was a confusion thinking that if the target, they dodge, that you still have to pay the cost, but that's not how it works. So if the target is removed from the field, you no longer have to pay for that one. And it just forces out so much interaction. And it's why I prefer to over Droplet a little bit because against Mitsurugi, or even just any deck that plays Solemn Judgment, uh, Droplet will, in theory, neg you infinity because you could send 1, 2, 3, 4 cards and you look like you're about to win the game, but then they just either purification the Droplet because we play no traps and so they can respond, or they judgment it. And so, yeah, it worked great against that Centurion game. Uh, I bounced the field spell and I think Cosmic Blazar, and so they couldn't negate it because that's another beautiful thing about the card is the activation and effect can't be negated. And so it dealt with so many things. And even in testing, like against White Forest, sometimes they'll take the Charmy challenge and give you a bunch of draws. And I remember I like bounced like 4 things off their field. It worked great. It's a great card.
And obviously, this deck can take the most advantage because extra deck is mostly utility, I believe.
Yes, correct. Yeah. Usually the priority, I think I try to do 6 from extra deck. So I try to keep 2 king, 1 twin, and enough Fiendsmith cards that you should be able to make Caesar. So I think Moon, Requiem, Wave King, and Necroquip. Uh, that should be with the 3 memento cards should give you 6, and then you can banish the other 6, and then 1 from hand. Uh,
Mm.
there was a situation where I did do 4. I did 12 from extra deck and 2 from my hand, and it was just enough to play.
And did you win that game?
Yes, I did. Yeah,
So you played high risk and you got rewarded for it. Obviously,
exactly.
yeah. That speaks to
Yeah.
the obviously to your skill level and to this card as well being absolutely bonkers in the right deck.
Yeah, correct. Because yeah, not you're right. That not every deck, a lot of the meta decks cannot afford to play this deck card. But I'm sure I think we'll see in like a later format, maybe a more meta deck that can afford to do it, and it'll be insane. Uh, but right now it felt fine for Memento, and yeah, it paid off.
And then you play the 3 Heat Wave. Why? The last time I saw this card was in when 10 Pi was full power, but that was going
Yeah.
second deck. You're going first and playing Heat Wave. Why? Why do you play this card?
Yes. So this came from Sven. I think maybe even a long time ago, like last year, he like maybe a German event. I forgot what it was, but he also played Heatwave. But then again, recently with the German Nats that just happened, his topping list had this card, and I like the philosophy behind it. He says because it's just to skip the Mochami games because this deck can play under a single Charmy. It has a hard time playing under 2 unique Charmies, so say like Bua and Purulia or Purulia and Meow. And that's the other thing about this deck that's bad is that all 3 of the Charmies are good against it. So you can side all 9 versus say like Mitsu Raizu or Malice, maybe you only put 6 because it won't be as good. And so this just kind of skips that whole thing. It just says like, all right, have your Charmies, you're going to pass your turn back to me, and I'm going to force out Nib if you even play Nib by threatening Wave King, and then I'm just going to kill you on my turn. Uh, and I personally liked it because it just fixes a lot of the siding issues. Because I know thrust into gnomes is pretty popular for Mitsurizio, but then you gotta add more traps to make thrusts good against other matchups, say Malice or like kind of rogue decks. And it just was taking up too much space. And so this just solves the issue completely because every matchup, I don't care what I'm playing against, I'll put 3 Ash, 3 Heatwave outside, take out the 6 Charmies, and go first. Uh,
And how many games did it win? Did this card win you?
I think 4. I saw it 4 times, and each time I won. I won like a blowout. It was they either saw what I was doing and they know the deck that it can OTK easily, or that they don't have nib, or they have no hand traps, and they scooped up and told me, or they wanted to see it, and then yeah, I make Wave King to make sure I'm safe from nib, and then I just OTK. Uh,
So
in testing
okay.
it was great, in practice it was great, and in actual event it was great.
So this card is just great. It's
Yeah,
just right. Okay. So I can see this card being really good. So,
yeah,
it was a menacing 10 pi, and your deck can do the
yes.
same thing with the I believe it's Akihuron, which can attack directly. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's the other thing I would usually do is if I have Bone Party and like a Memento name, sometimes I'll play in my draw phase. That way I can get card advantage, and then in the main phase activate Heat Wave. And if I don't have that, then I just activate Heat Wave and set a normal summon. That way, in theory, you have like a second normal summon because they'll say they stop the first one. Well, then you normal summon again and keep pushing. And I was never stopped whenever I played Heat Wave.
So now to go to your extra deck. I know this is very standard than the fusion targets, but the two cards I see here are Duke of Demise. So explain the thought process behind Duke of Demise.
Uh, I mean, kind of what you mentioned at the start, how I think people usually cut down on Dirk Blade. I think this is the most amount of normal summons a standard Memento that could play. And so you do have a lot of normal summons. And so in case you're playing against someone who's still playing like low impact hand traps, or say even just Ash, I think a lot of advice that people are given against this deck is say Ash Tatsu. So they'll let Witch Resolve to search Tatsu, they'll special Tatsu, and then they'll Ash. And Duke of Demise, because we play so many normal summons, it lets you turn those 2 bodies into Duke, and Duke will give you the extra normal, and you can keep playing.
And the last card is Arrow Shark. I've seen this in people list. This is
Yes,
mostly a time card.
correct. It's mostly a time card, and I think the only thing to say about it, maybe it might be, I think people prefer Agave Dragon sometimes, and it's I believe it was the guy who just won the Italian Nationals. He was saying how Arrow Shark lets you comfortably burn for time while still doing the full combo through interruptions. Because Agave Dragon, on theory, is very easy to make. It's just a link 4, and the deck can spam out bodies like no tomorrow. But assuming you're playing through interruptions, say like Nibiru or even like Bestials or stuff like that, you might have a hard time making it comfortably just to be safe. Versus Arrow Shark is just 2 level 3 bodies. You make it, even if there's like, say, I don't know, 7 minutes left. Because sometimes your opponent will spend a lot of time trying to break through your board, and either they'll get to poke you in battle phase, or it'll just end up in a tie. So Arrow Shark is just an easy one to make, and that yeah, just a time card.
So the other card I've seen that's not in your extra deck is the Herald card that people make. What's
Mirage Lights, I think, right?
I think that's the one. Yeah,
It's the
this one,
yeah,
Mirage
that one.
Lights. Yeah.
Yeah,
So why did you not play this? Wow. Why?
yeah. I was playing it when I wasn't playing this kind of hybrid version, because I agree you need some type of negate. And against say like Mitsuraizo, you use this against Mitsurugi Ritual, usually. But the reason I cut it is because it just I feel like it was kind of difficult to consistently make the end board with it and also have Mace in hand because the card requires you to discard a fairy. So even if you could make it and say SP and all your full end board, sometimes it was hard to start your opponent's turn with Mace already in hand. And so say the Mitsurugi, like whatever Mitsurugi deck you're playing, say they already have Ritual in hand, you're too slow to stop it because you won't have Mace in hand. And so it just was more consistent to be able to make Wave King. So that's why I opted to play the Fiendsmith version, and Wave King will kind of replaces that in my head. It's just stopping power spells or spells that will just create special summons.
Right. So
Yeah.
that's your whole deck. Would you change anything with your deck? Any changes?
I either I'd make the third king into Baphomet, the third creation king. Uh, that was like a last minute addition. I think I added it like right before the regional started. So I think it would add to the end board a bit more nicely, and it's not that hard to make. And other than that, I think I like the deck. I think it was just perfect for this event. It every card came up technically. Uh, I don't think I missed any card. I don't think I regretted playing any card. It just felt perfect.
Okay. And how well suited do you think Memento is for the next format for Duelist Advance and the Justice Hunters? Obviously, Duelist Advance first. How well positioned do you think it is?
I think it's a strong contender for sure. I know some people say are they're worried about the rise in Bestials because in Vanquish Soul because like they needing the dark attributes, but I think a lot of the lines, I mean honestly most of the lines I feel play around a Bestial and it's easier. It's very easy once you know they're playing Bestials. Like once you know they're on Vanquish Soul, you'll adjust your lines accordingly. And other than that, I think it's fine into Duelist Advance. The only worry might be is Luna Light. I don't know how consistent it is yet in making like their full end board, but I know there's already some ideas floating around on how to deal with it in the Memento deck because you can maybe make like a generator transverser to protect your combined creation from destruction and then go to battle and beat over it. Liger Dancer, that is. But and then for Justice Hunters, I think um it's hard to say. I think on paper it's not gonna be that strong anymore. It's gonna get power crept this deck. I know there's some testing into making like a K9 version to help it. I mean, I hope it still works because I love this deck. I'll keep trying to play with this deck. But basically, short answer, Duad. I think it's still a good contender. Justice Hunters, we just have to wait and see.
And do you see yourself playing this deck, or does any other deck catch your eye? Because you love combo decks, and Konami loves making combo decks. Which combo deck has caught your eye, if there's any?
Uh, at least for Duad, I think this deck, maybe Luna Light. Luna Light seems like it's a deck that plays a lot of gas and kind of sets up like an FTK board. And then for Justice Hunters, I hear they're all kind of they all kind of seem mid-rangey compared to what we've been exposed to, like say now with Memento, Yubel, Malice. But probably Dragon Tail once we get Spoon. Uh, but yeah.
I see. So, are you going to the NAWCQ? Are you, because you've topped? I believe you do have your invite. Are you gonna be there?
Yes, I plan to attend the NAWCQ.
So obviously, I don't think you want to tell your deck list or your deck choice, but I think if you're on whether you want to be on, I think you'll do really well. From what you're saying, I feel like you're a very good player. You've tested whatever deck you will take, you will test a lot. And any last words, any final thoughts, any shout outs you want to give, anything you want to say?
Uh, I mean, yeah, I guess if you're thinking about playing this deck, just keep at it. I think it's a complicated, or sorry, it's a complex deck, but it's not complicated. I think there's like ways that you'll see a lot of patterns and it'll kind of compress what you need to maybe memorize. Then I guess shout outs a lot of the Memento people. Like I said, I got a lot of help online, especially through a lot of people on DB, like Kira99, Noah Evangel, Sven, like I said, Sven Redman. Um, they're all great. I think this deck is very fun to work with other people with because the lines are so intricate and even now I feel like I'm still seeing cool new lines. But yeah, that's all I gotta say.
Thank you. Shout out to Sven. You've mentioned him a lot. I wish you
Yeah.
all the best for your NAWCQ, and I thank you so much for coming on board and giving this insight to your deck. If you do top, well, no, when you top, I would like to, I would like you to come back and tell me all the fun you had being all the Vanquish Soul players.
All right, I will definitely do that. Thank you for having me, Sabit.
No worries, no worries. Thank you so much. And any comments for Kevin? Just put them down below. Please subscribe. Thank you so much. Catch you in a bit.